Good evening, everybody. Welcome to my special broadcast this evening. It's Wednesday night, 8 p.m., and tonight we're chatting all about school avoidance, school refusal, school phobia, school anxiety, and other related issues. My name is Philippa Fabry. I'm an education consultant here in Port Elizabeth and one of the directors at Elson Academy. My good friend and colleague is joining me this evening, Dr. Danny Ahing. We really felt that this is an important topic. And for me, the reason why I specifically chose this topic is because no child should have to be scared of going to school. It's something that I think has affected many children, even more so since the pandemic has hit. And I think parents are looking for solutions. They're looking for different ways of dealing with this kind of issue. And hopefully, this evening, we're going to talk about some of the things to look out for, I think. Before we even go to finding solutions, it's looking for things to look out for. So, yeah, I've been in this field of education for over 25 years. I have just completed my PhD on anxiety in children and adolescents, so you can see this is a topic very close to my heart. So if you're a parent and you're watching this evening and you are really personally affected by your child not wanting to go to school, you would be dreading Sunday nights, you would be dreading Monday mornings, and you would be dreading the end of the weekend or the end of a school holiday because, as you know, as the holidays get closer to the end and school is just around the corner, if your child has got any kind of avoidance issues, they would already be starting to talk about not wanting to go to school or this and that they're worrying about. So I'm going to now introduce my dear darling friend. Please, if you are watching and you would like to tell us where you are and where you're from, now would be the opportunity to pop it into the comments so we can see you and we can just say, hi, Gail, it's lovely to see you. Tell us where you're from. Tell us if this is a topic that you're excited to listen to. Um, what is your reason for being here? Are you a parent? Are you a teacher? Are you just interested in this topic? So it's always nice to know, and we love having an interactive discussion. This is not a lecture. This is a conversation. Danny and I both have been in this field for many years, 25 years. Danny might be less or the same. I'm not sure. But we really feel that there is absolutely no reason why any child shouldn't want to go to school for whatever reason. And so, yeah, this is why this topic is very close to both of our hearts. So without any further ado, as the comments are coming in, yes, please send those comments through so we can see and say hi to you. Without any further ado, Danny, hello.
Hello, Phil.
Welcome,
How are you?
welcome, welcome. I'm
Thank
very
you.
good. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself so that I can carry on doing the tech. As you can see, it's just us today. It's the girls. We don't have our darling Gino
Yeah.
techie on hand. So we are having to do everything here like an octopus with many hands trying to do lots of things. So Dan, can I ask you to introduce yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
Sure. I'm Danny Ahing. I have a doctorate in special needs education. The focus was on child sexual abuse. My master's degree was on autism and parental coping strategies. I do private remedial work from home. What else? I've lectured for a couple of years on a part time basis at the university in the education faculty. And I don't know, Phil, that's about it, really.
You do lots, like me, you do lots. You've got your fingers in lots of pies.
Yeah.
So we've got Gail online. We've got Rebecca. She's a teacher, from what I can see, grade 6. And Jolene, she's a parent of a 7-year-old with anxiety. So this is just the right talk for you. So stick around, Jolene. Um, like I said, we're gonna be chatting about some of the signs and symptoms that as parents we need to be looking out for before things escalate into full-blown anxiety. There are some sort of precursors or things that you need to just be aware of, and then we're going to talk about, what are the causes of anxiety and when you need to go and seek professional help. Because I think the most important thing is to know what help to get and then how to go about managing the anxiety. So I think we need to now head straight into the discussion. So, as I said, Dan, dreading Sunday nights, dreading the Monday morning, getting kids ready and off to school. Do you have a personal story or do you have a case study that you can chat about in terms of when this has directly affected somebody? And yeah, tell us a little bit about something that you've
Sure,
come with.
Fuller. I do have a case study that I can share with you. Before I go to that, I think we need to just make it clear that it's a natural action to try and avoid things that cause potential fear or hurt or anxiety. And avoidance and fear go hand in hand. And the case study I want to just very briefly tell you about is quite a complex one because it involved the school causing anxiety as well as something that came from home. So it was a little person who was in a class with a teacher who was exceptionally strict. For
We're
example,
talking, what are we talking? Primary school then,
grade
hey?
three, grade
Grade three.
three.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
So if the children handed in work that was not up to her expectations, she'd tear it up and throw it in the bin. She would put red lines through work. There was a certain degree of criticism towards the children in her class. Well, the result is the one little person that was in this lady's class started developing a lot of anxiety. The teacher was also absent very often because she was ill. She wasn't an old teacher, she was a youngish teacher. So within the first 6 months, that particular class had in the region of
Lots of
about
change.
5 different teachers. Yes.
Mm,
And the teacher was often in and out of hospital because of her own health issues.
mm,
So the children never knew on a Sunday night, when I get to school tomorrow, will my teacher be there or will there be somebody else? And in this specific instance, this little girl experienced that her grandfather had gone into hospital and didn't come out because he passed away.
mm,
So the anxiety that built up on a Sunday evening, not knowing, am I going to go to school tomorrow? Is my teacher going to be there? Because we know that our teacher has been in hospital in and out of. That's why there's so many other people taking her place. And that caused huge anxiety to the point that the child was eventually taken to a specialist who said that the conditions, the tummy aches, the headaches, the tears were all psychosomatic.
mm,
And it was because this child never had any of her work, torn up, or she was never humiliated in any kind of way.
mm,
But being a sensitive little person, it impacted heavily on her emotionally. So
mm,
I
mm.
can only imagine that in that environment, there must have
Yes.
been other children who experienced
Oh,
the same things.
absolutely. Mm. Especially for an
And
empath type child. An
absolutely
empath.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's an instance where the anxiety
yeah.
built up from both being at home and from what's happened at home. It's a traumatic experience, as well as what's happening in the classroom and at
Yeah.
school. And
Mm,
then this little person married the two together in terms of going to hospital. One never came out.
mm, mm,
If I go to school and the other one is not there, will my teacher come back?
yeah. So as we were saying that some of the causes, you were saying it was a grandfather that was ill, went into hospital. The teacher wasn't always there, so there was lots of change. So we know that there's very seldom just one reason. It's usually a combination of
Mm,
things. Where it could be some kind of an issue at home. It could be a social problem where there might be bullying or some kind of teasing going on. It could be a teacher who's giving them a hard time. Could be depression. Could be a phobia about something at school, like not wanting to um, sit in assembly, for example. That could create anxiety. Or perhaps, having to go out at break time and who am I going to sit with? Who's going to maybe, talk to me? Or so it's that change, the fear of the unknown, learning problems as well, knowing that maybe, I'm having to write a test or I'm having to get my marks back and maybe I won't do as well. So there are lots of, it's often many causes, not just one particular thing. So I think for parents, and I see here's another comment, I need to have my wits about me here because there's lots of things going on. Okay, so as I'm going through my in my head thinking about what we need to discuss. Hi Thomas, lovely that you're joining us. So we are going to be talking about things that you can do. So stick around. We hear you. We hear you. Parents saying, I'm a parent, a mom, I'm a dad of a very anxious little child, like 7 year olds. Hey, I mean,
Mm.
I can only imagine that if you start in grade one and grade two and you're already anxious, if you don't deal with it, how that can compound and become, a huge issue. Um, yes, Rebecca, great question. If one aspect is dealt with, can it have favorable results? Of course it can. We're gonna talk about some success stories as well. So parents, these are some of the things that Danny and I are going to tell you what you need to look out for. So Dan, as parents get to know you and I, Danny is very much in tune with kids in primary school, dealing with foundation phase and the younger child. My area is more the older teenagers, high school kind of children. So we're going to talk about the symptoms that you might see in your children. I'm going to come from the older child, Danny's going to come from the younger child. So let's look at some of the symptoms, Dan. Just starting with, as you say, the psychosymptomatic symptoms that kids complain of or
Sure.
complain
For
about.
uh, I just want to mention before we go on to those that I think it's quite important to understand that fear of school, school phobia, whatever it is, however you want to term it, to understand it, it's a symptom. It's not a diagnosis.
Mm,
It's a symptom of an underlying anxiety. In very little children, it could be separation anxiety. Children at pre-primary, children starting grade one, even in older grades, they don't want that separation. They can't distinguish between the fear and the reality, because their fear is being away from mom and or dad when they dropped off at school, but they don't know that there is no fear to be in that particular a learning environment. So there are many different kinds of anxieties, and things like we had mentioned earlier on. Sometimes children are absent on specific days. It
mm,
doesn't necessarily have to be on a Sunday night. It could be the day before a test.
mm,
You might actually find, for example, a child who might, for example, be a little bit overweight and they don't like going to do phys ed.
Is it?
So that causes anxiety because, okay, it's swimming. I've got to put a costume on. They're going
Yeah.
to see my tummy. Someone's going to tease me. So ahead of something that could happen at school that is not directly linked to the child. It's something the child is afraid of. So being afraid of something that hasn't happened yet. And that causes quite a bit of anxiety as well. You mentioned earlier on depression. There are many, many children all over the world that are very little, 4 or 5 year olds that suffer from depression for a variety of reasons. So I think, we tend to have a look at depression as an adult condition, but we forget that anxiety and the stresses that the kids are under, and sometimes they put themselves under those conditions.
Mm.
That can also be very, very hurtful for children. They might perhaps go to the secretaries at the schools. They know who their customers, in inverted commas, are. It's the
Mm.
same children that will go, I've got a tummy ache, I've got a headache, can you please phone mommy to come and
And my
fetch me,
mom.
I'm not feeling well. So they will pick up that routine with the children.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and it's important to understand, is this child really ill? Because it's a case of, the boy who cried wolf.
Mm.
How do you know when that
When
child
it's
is
for real.
actually ill? Obviously, if it's not a very obvious illness. But it's not easy. I mean, if we drop off little ones, for example, sometimes the moms get in the car, the teacher says, the child's going to be fine. Off you go. And we, get in the car and you sob all the way home, but you haven't even turned the corner and the child's fine and running around and playing. And I
Yes.
think as parents, we need to have a look at that as well, because we project our own anxieties onto our children.
Mm.
And that it stems from very little babies. You're holding a baby, and another person takes that baby, holds the
Mm.
baby. The child might turn around and put their arms out again. I'm separated from my mommy or my daddy now. It's a
Mm.
baby, but it knows it might be granny and grandpa, but I want mommy and daddy.
Mm.
So, and anxiety is not always a bad thing, Phil.
Mm.
So it's when we've got all of these conditions, children who are exhausted, fatigued, they don't sleep properly at night. They don't want to go to school in the morning
Mm.
because I wake up now, I
That's
haven't
right.
slept properly last night, and I am exhausted.
Mm.
So then there becomes this battle of the wits in the morning when it gets to
Mm.
going to school, because mom and dad must get to work and the child doesn't want to go to school, and so the problem can compound
Mm. Mm.
and just cause problems all, for the parents, for the teachers, and the little one ends up being caught in the middle, not knowing,
Mm.
how do I handle this whole thing.
Yeah. So, in terms of some of the symptoms or some of the complaints of the older child, so the younger child would be complaining of tummy aches, wanting to phone mommy, not wanting to get out the car, um, those sort of issues. The older child will, as you say, it sometimes is comorbid with depression. So we see things like self-harming, we see things like depression, we see things like either sleeping too much or not being able to sleep at all, the moodiness, irritability, locking themselves in their room, not wanting to come out. Just a sort of change in behavior. I think it's about looking for that change in behavior and that sort of out of character. It just doesn't seem to be part of their character anymore. So anything that has sort of unnerved your kid, and where you can see they're not keen to go to school in the morning. They just drag their feet, and that whole thing, as Danny's saying about, I need to get to work now. Get out the car, and it just compounds into a stressful battle of, as you say, a battle of wills in the morning. Um, Alicia is asking about how do you differentiate between anxiety and just being lazy, especially when it's harder to get up in the morning. It's winter, it's cold. There's a good question there.
Alicia, I would say that as a parent, you would probably be able to pick up, your child. No one knows a child better than their parents. And you will know whether your child is actually anxious or whether it is just, I don't want to get up because it is cold. Because the symptoms will be there.
Yeah, I was
We
going to
pick
say,
up
look out
early
for the
warning. Yeah.
symptoms.
We,
Not wanting to eat
we,
breakfast, tummy
Exactly.
ache.
Don't want to eat, don't want to get dressed. You'll pick it up quite quickly. Even when you get to school, you might get the child into the car, but getting the child out of the car at school is going to be another story completely. So it takes each person on their own merit. So the parents need to make that call,
Yeah. I
because
think
you
in
know your
terms of,
child best.
yeah, the morning struggle is real, and it can become very stressful for the parents.
Mm.
So when mom and dad are stressed, it just makes things so much worse. Rebecca, there's a question here as well. As teachers, we are encouraged to create an environment separate to home where child feels safety in the routines, predictability, and so on, but separate in the hope, I suppose, that the child, there's probably more coming. Here we go. Might leave anxieties behind, dissociated from home in a sense. Is this not actually helpful? Is this not actually helpful? So creating a separate environment, home and school, making it definite, that it's I'm getting out of home now, I'm getting out of the car and I'm going into school, and there's a definite separation between home and school. Are we not creating almost like an anxiety because it's such a different place? I don't know.
That transition, Phil, at the end of the day, school is an extension of home, just on a far more formal platform. And I have the greatest respect for foundation phase teachers, particularly grade 1 teachers, because their task is mammoth. I think out of all the grades, by the end of grade 1, those are the teachers that can see the most progress in the children. So they are the ones that are going to be faced with this little person that has this anxiety. And as I say, when that transition goes from home into school, that's where the teacher is creating that environment. It's a loving, it's a caring environment, it's a supportive environment, and
Should be.
it's all,
Should
it
be.
should be. It should be, yes, where the child feels that they can trust the teacher, that they feel comfortable being in that environment, that the teacher is meeting their emotional needs. And when I say that, there's also a fine line between children who are used to getting their own way, so they have to stand in front of the line. Their hand always goes up because they want to be noticed. They are used to having all the attention. So, that can cause anxiety for other children who are not as confident, because I'm never going to get a chance to do anything because I'm worried that if I put my hand up, I draw attention to myself and my answer is wrong, someone's going to laugh at me. So it's very hard for these little people when they go in there in grade 1, and then if the problem is not sorted, I mean, they eventually it compounds because it goes from one grade to the next.
So this comment here by Jeannie, fear to leave mom and dad, it's daily. So there's a definite separation anxiety there. And we were talking, Dan, that separation anxiety is a symptom of something. It's not a diagnosis. Or it is a diagnosis, but there's definitely a reason for the separation anxiety. So it's about trying to uncover what it is. Is it a fear? What is it a fear of? Um, so I think, Jeannie, you need to get hold of one of us, and let's try and uncover what this is, because it is so fixable. Really, it is. This isn't something that should go on and on and on. He's 10. He's going into intermediate phase. The separation anxiety should have really been left behind. The separation anxiety is normal for little toddlers. Little ones starting school for the first time. They are nervous about starting school and leaving mommy. And there's also separation anxiety from mommy, by the way. especially
Yes.
especially when you're leaving your child for the first time and you're going back to work after maternity leave. It's real. Let me tell you, it's real. So, Jeannie, please get hold of us. I'm going to put our email addresses up at the end. You can contact us. I'm happy to have a chat to you. And so is Danny. So let's move on to a couple of more questions. Has there been any research into the negative effect to having a visible star chart on show in the class? Has that ever been linked to child's anxiety, especially with kids who are not academic? Great question, Bronwyn. Love it. Love it. What do you think, Dan?
I'm sure there must have been research that has taken place, studies that have been done. I don't know of any, but I can very well imagine that that does cause anxiety. The teacher, that's where the teacher's got to monitor this very carefully. You can't just hand out the stars and the stickers and whatever. But if there are little people or one little person in that class who is not getting stars because of good work, because they're getting 10 out of 10 for phonics or whatever the case is, the teacher needs to take each case like that at its own merit and decide, how can I make this child feel part
Yeah.
of this class? Because what you don't want, and that question is so pertinent, is
Mm,
for that child to feel pushed aside. I
mm.
never get stars. I don't get stars. I've got 3, and everyone else has got more than 10.
Well, let's
Uh,
ask Roxy what she thinks. Yeah, Roxy is a grade 2 teacher. Thanks for this webinar, Danny, my friend. It's good to be a student of yours again. Roxy, do you make use of star charts? And how does it work in your class? Because I get that point. I get that
mm,
totally. If you're not getting, if you don't have hundreds of stars on your chart and you see everybody else getting theirs, um, that's not a great sort of boost to one's self-esteem unless there are other ways that they can get rewarded as well. You can't just reward for work. You know, you have to be rewarding for behavior and for kindness and for
mm,
showing empathy and for being helpful and um, yeah, not just being generally polite and well mannered. I think children should be getting
mm.
stars for those things too. I hope some of the teachers watching will 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 take some yeah.
Well, in
Um,
essence, those are life skills. What you've
totally,
just mentioned now are life
totally.
skills.
So
And
here we go. Yeah, Jeannie's saying it started recently, so I'm just wondering if this isn't related to COVID, going back to school after
mm,
lockdown. You know, when we were all homeschooling, and we were in each other's um, spaces 24/7. We spent almost 9 months at home with our kids, mom and dad working remotely, and then having to go back to school again. I'm sure this is something to do with the pandemic and being
mm,
scared that, you know, we're going to get sick, or I think this is definitely related to something new because it's not, she said it's only started recently. Um, okay, keep the comments coming, guys. I love it. So let's look at a couple more causes. We spoke about, oh, I've thrown my piece of paper down. Stressful events. So we spoke about galas, sports days, having to do orals, having to stand up in front of the class and do an oral. Oh, that is scary.
mm,
Possibly a divorce or death in the family, changing schools, a new
mm,
school year, getting a new teacher, not knowing. A huge thing is possibly moving areas at school. So in foundation phase, this is where I'm allowed to sit, and this is where I need to line up. And now when I get to grade 4, it's a completely different area of the school. It's possibly new classrooms, so there's change. Bullying or teasing definitely could be an issue, where anxiety or school refusal comes into play there. Problems with the teacher, as Danny did allude to earlier on, that there was a strict teacher, and there was just a clash of personalities and characters there. Look, I mean, it happens all the time. You know, it's really something that I think often happens, and sometimes teachers aren't even aware that there's somebody sitting in the class that's terrified of them, and probably, you know, definitely not wanting to know that they're causing such anxiety, but it's happening. Exams and tests, school results coming out,
mm.
you know, and then, as you said, this COVID issue is also playing a big part.
Phil,
So,
can I
did you
just
want to
touch
say,
on?
yeah, go?
You were talking about exams and tests. If one just thinks back over the years, how many matrics, before they've even received their matric results, have gone into self harm or committed suicide because of the
Mm,
anxiety, that
yeah.
absolute stress and fear of getting those results.
Mm,
And that is absolutely unnecessary.
yeah.
It's extremely sad. And,
Mm,
I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't believe that anxiety only started in matric. it's a build-up and a culmination of things over a couple of years.
100%.
So that I think is vitally important for teachers to take note of as well, and parents. Watch your child, encouraging all the time. Just be an advocate for your child. Sometimes it's very difficult. You do want to send them to Outer Mongolia, but it doesn't matter. You be there to support them all the time. Phil, what sometimes does happen, what parents do is, if there is the child develops a problem at their current school, they decide without a valid reason that it's the school. So then they'll just take the child out and put their child at another school because that's going to sort it out.
Yeah.
Most of the time, the parents are simply transferring the problem. They're not addressing it because within time, that same problem is going to start manifesting at the new school.
100%. So parents, we're gonna direct the next part to you guys, because I know as parents you kind of want to problem solve. So you want to try and smooth it over and make it all okay. And sometimes, and I've done it as well. Sometimes we compact and we compound the problem and make it worse. So often when there's school refusal or school avoidance, parents can do one of two things. Firstly, they can ignore it and think it's just going to go away, and they sort of say to the child, you must get over it, and no, you are going to go, and no, we don't have time for this, and we kind of just hope that it's going to phase out, that it's going to sort itself out, and the kid must just deal with it, and we're not actually going to make this a bigger problem. So they force their kids to go to school. They sort of manage it like like it's not an irritation, but it's something that they need to just get on with and get over with. The second thing is we allow the child to stay at home or miss school. So because you don't want to create any more conflict, because you don't enjoy the conflict in the mornings, you don't want to make a scene when it's drop-off time, you don't want to be seen to be, oh, look at that parent, what they're doing. So you rather, and also you can't be late for work. I mean, let's face it, we need to get to work on time. So when it's really bad, you say it's okay, you can stay at home. And that just makes things even worse, because now again, they miss school. They don't know what's going on. When they do go back to school, then they've missed work, and there's all that issues to deal with as well. So both of those are almost the wrong thing to do.
There's no easy answer for this.
Yeah, you can't ignore it, and you also can't allow it to allow the child to get away with it either. So go ahead.
When we were chatting a little earlier, your field the focus is more on adolescents and high school kids. Something that I've picked up over the years as well, specifically with high school kids, maybe grade 7 going into grade 8, is the insecurities, the poor self-image that can develop because they are changing physically. When they reach adolescence, there are noticeable physical changes. The boys start with facial hair. That could be cause of anxiety and pressure. So-and-so is shaving, but I'm not shaving yet. They're telling me, oh, I'm growing facial hair, and my friends aren't, so I feel out. They could be. So with girls, they develop breasts, some ahead of others, and that can also cause anxiety.
Yeah.
Again, you go back to, for example, phys ed or swimming, swimming gala, sport after school, because they've got to change in the same change rooms.
Yeah.
So there are many things that adolescents. It's not easy being a teen. That's your
100%.
department.
100%. So Carrie, she says she's wondering if it is the school. Some schools are not the right fit for the child. Interested in your thoughts. Yeah. So that is, Carrie. If I had to say to you, my thing is that there's the right school for every child. Might not necessarily be the right school, but there's the right school for every child. So absolutely choose carefully. I've done a bit of research on how to select the right school, the type of questions that parents need to ask, how you actually do your due diligence as a parent, what you need to be looking for. Um, Sometimes the open days that schools put on, it's smoke and mirrors, and it's just this wonderful performance,
Yeah.
but behind the scenes, it's not so wonderful. So yeah, and I'm sure Danny would agree with me. You need to really make sure that it's the
Mm.
right school for your child, not that it's the most convenient school because it's just around the corner, and because that might not be the right school. It might be the right school for you as the parent because it's convenient, but it might not necessarily be the right school. So yeah, I think that that's a very careful consideration has to go in there.
Phil,
This is
to link to that, I don't think that parents are always aware as well that there are schools that can accommodate their children. There are technical schools
mm,
that can teach vocations rather than focus on academics. Because you also mentioned the pressure from academics that the children
yeah,
are under.
yeah, yeah.
They have
Roxy's
to
saying we do.
achieve.
That's it. We do Star of the Week award and we focus on the fruit of the spirit characteristics. Love it.
Mm.
I love
Roxy,
that.
sometimes teachers foundation phase, they have a little teddy bear or dolly or whatever, and that they use as a reward as well, not necessarily stars.
Be an advocate for your child. An important way of being. Chantal, it's so difficult though because to be an advocate for your child, you almost want to smooth everything over and make everything it's there's a fine line between giving your child the skills to be able to deal with their own problems
Mm.
and then being able to solve the problems with your
Yeah.
child, not for your child. I think
Mm.
that's key there as well. Gail says, so
Yeah.
these days,
Sure.
um,
Oh, my word.
competition between peer, there's no
Uh,
money. Yeah, there we go. So Civvies days. So
that's
yeah, and not wanting to
mm,
go to school on Civvies days because you might not be able to be wearing the most trending sneakers or the most
mm.
trending outfit. Wow, hey, Civvies days
Well,
should be so
also
fun.
devices. More and more
Mm,
schools are actually, the kids have got to use a device in a classroom. Not every parent can afford to go and buy an expensive device that's their
mm,
child can take to school to use in that
yeah,
environment. You know, the
yeah.
pressure is hard on these kids.
Yeah. Yes, Rebecca, we said that that is so key.
Mm,
You've just also finger on the pulse there, that it's not just about academics.
mm,
There has to be other rewards as well. This is an interesting one. For a single parent, now you can imagine you've got an anxious child, you
mm,
are a single mom, you don't have anybody that can that has your back in the morning. You know, if it's a bad morning, somebody else that can say, listen, I'll take him to school. I'll let me do the school run this morning. Because sometimes, and I'm not being funny, and again, I've got to be careful what I say, but sometimes kids are less manipulative with the father than with the mom.
mm,
So sometimes if dad takes them to school, it's sometimes easier than if mom takes them to school. I might be
mm,
wrong, but that is what I've picked up a lot. That if the kid is giving them a hard time in the morning, you know, maybe dad is a bit more firm. Maybe dad takes no nonsense, or I don't know. They're less likely to manipulate if daddy's taking them to school. What do you think?
Full, you know, I think for a I'm a single mum, and but long before I became a single mum, the routine for my own kids is put your clothes out at night for school, for example. Make sure
Mm,
you've got socks and a tie, and don't come and tell me tomorrow morning that you can't find your tie because that's not my
mm,
problem,
yeah.
actually. And it's
Mm,
very harsh, but that is what my kids have known. I mean, my kids now pack out. Well, not my daughter anymore, but they make sure. And at night, and you know, full. If the kids have got everything set out for the next morning, it
mm.
makes life so much
So
simpler.
much easier. Yeah,
It's so much
yeah.
easier than having to run around and look for a pair of socks or one sock um, in the morning. And I think it's very difficult because it comes down to time management. So it's very
Mm,
difficult for single moms, you know.
mm.
Um,
Yeah, keep as little to do in the morning as possible. Try and keep the morning routine as
Mm,
calm and and try and get up a little bit earlier so there isn't that mad rush. Try and deal with the little hiccups that come along the way because there will be. Um, and I think that is one thing to do is, as Danny says, put everything out the night before, make it the school lunch the night before, put everything in the suitcase the night before. Um, Check the traffic. My son is very good at that. He's got an app that he can check the traffic and he can tell me how busy the roads are and what time we need to leave so that we get to school on time. Because he hates if there's traffic because it makes him anxious. So he
mm,
will say to me, Mom, there's a lot of traffic or there's load shedding. The robots are out. So we
mm,
need to leave at 10 past 7. We can't leave at 20 past. So he'll tell me that. So we need to make sure
mm,
that we can leave anytime between 7 and half past depending on
mm.
traffic. So it's that kind of thing.
Rebecca,
Um,
sorry, I can't recall. How old is your child?
I think
If you
she
can
said
just let us
7.
know.
I think 7. 7 or 10. There was one
Um,
that was 7 and one that was 10. I think Jeannie was 10. Rebecca, I think, was 7. The role sharing, dad does school drop off. Yeah. Parents working together. Absolutely. It's a team sport. Parenting is a
but
team
poor
sport.
mothers, when dad goes and fetches the child from school, they literally throw their bags down and they run and they jump up into dad's arms. When mom goes, it's like, it's just mom fetching us today. So dads do play an important role in
Mm,
the dropping and the fetching.
mm, mm.
There was a question, Phil, about
Oh,
tomorrow.
Rebecca's
I'm
grade
assuming,
6
yeah.
teacher.
Oh, grade 6.
Grade 6 teacher.
Okay.
So what can be suggested? Well, we've said to reassure and motivate anxious learners in the morning. Are there some steps to try from tomorrow? Yes, be organized.
Um,
Be organized. Don't be
mm,
late for school. Make sure you're up early. Get prepared the night before. Reassure them that you will fetch them at a certain time. Make
mm,
sure that they know what. Also, telling them some things about the teacher. I think there was a question earlier on. The more the learners know about the teacher, that she is actually human. She's not a robot. She also likes certain things. She might have hobbies and interests. Um, she might also shop at Woolworths or whatever it is. Teachers need to be seen as human beings, not
mm.
these beings from another planet.
They
Um,
don't sleep at school either.
they don't,
Well,
yeah, and they are allowed to have holidays. Guys, we're coming to the end of our talk. I do want to try and end within the next 5 minutes. So we're going to quickly chat about what you can do when there is a specifically stressful event at school. So let's say, look, these things happen. So galas do happen, sports days do happen, tests and exams do happen, holidays and weekends do happen. So I think the most important thing there is you cannot wish those things away.
mm,
But it's about helping your child to deal with them and communicating to the teacher or to the school how they can help with those stressful events or those anxiety provoking
mm,
events. It's all about making allowances, knowing that your child is going to be anxious, and then hoping that being aware of it and helping them deal with it. That is just something that teachers need to be on board. So
mm,
um, the separation anxiety again. If your child is struggling to separate from you in the morning, let the teacher come and fetch, or find someone else that can maybe drop off for a couple of mornings. Reassure them that you're going to be there to fetch, that you have to go to work, that everything's going to be okay. um, it's about managing it, not making it go away.
mm,
Anxiety is something that might be part of their makeup. Some children are predisposed to anxiety. It runs in the family. It's going to always be there, but it's how you manage it. So some of the things you can manage, or you can have some kind of say in, or some kind of control over, but other things you can't. So parents need to communicate with the school, communicate with the teacher, and if there is still no joy in that. So obviously, if it is an issue with the teacher, you can't swap teachers because your child is an issue.
Mm.
It's about speaking to the teacher or speaking to the other teacher in the grade, and seeing how you can work together. Yeah, I don't know, Dan, if you've got any other advice about what can parents do and what shouldn't they do to make matters
I
worse.
I think be very careful of attacking the teacher, and the teachers be careful of attacking the parents and
Exactly.
saying it's your fault what's happening at home. No, but what's happening at school? Because my child doesn't do that at home. um, that collaboration and working together is vitally important. And moms and dads, if you're watching, you are not always going to find a teacher that is empathetic to your specific child. And the older they get, the more difficult it is. You're going to find, especially among the male teachers, that are going to tell the boys to, and in inverted commas, man up. Uh,
Mm,
no, that will just create greater anxiety. So working together,
yeah,
Rebecca, if you can just contact us afterwards so that we can just give you a little bit of input regarding
mm,
tomorrow. Because we don't have much time left now, but I don't want
yeah.
to leave your question hanging.
Yeah, I think everybody here, there are different things that we can do, and I think the most important thing, parents, if you can contact somebody that can be absolutely 100% objective and honest with you. If you go to the teacher, there's going to be an issue because the teacher might think that you're attacking them or you're finding something wrong with the way they do things, something how they run their classroom, and immediately there might be a little bit of defensiveness or a little bit of,
Mm,
um, uh, I don't know. There might be issues with going straight to the teacher. If you again try and manage it on your own at home, you might just make things worse. You might compound things. So I think it's important to try and contact somebody that can be 100% objective, whether it's a family member. But again, the family member is going to take your side. They're not going to take the teacher's side. You need to find somebody who can be in the middle. Um,
mm,
Danny and myself, again, I'm going to put our email addresses here if I can just find them. Because I think what's important is that you need to get the right help. Um, I'd like you to contact myself or Danny. Our email address is there if you want specific guidance with your own issue. Everybody's going to have their own issues. Everybody's going to have their own home situations. But let's get down to the bottom of it.
mm,
Like I said, no child should not want to go to school. School is the place where they spend most of their time. It needs to be a safe and happy place. And moms and dads, your stress needs to end. You've
mm.
got a long way to go. School is 12 years, and it cannot be a stressful time. It's just it breaks my heart, really. It really does. Which is why we're doing these talks because we really do want to reach out. Um, so yeah, a lovely chat. I just want to go through these and acknowledge everybody that's come on board. We're not going to be able to answer any more questions, but we want to thank you, Rebecca, Roxy, Michelle, um, uh, who else was online? Chantel, Mary, um, Facebook user. We see you. We thank you for coming on board. Kate, Bronwyn, Gail. I hope I haven't missed anybody out. Jeannie, Alicia, Thomas.
Mi-
Yeah, I think I got everybody.
Michelle, Michelle's on now.
Michelle, thank you so much for watching. Please look out for our next series. Some exciting things up ahead. Next Wednesday will be a short Q&A about this very same topic. So if you want to share and get other people to watch next week, it will be just a 10-minute or 15-minute Q&A going through this very quickly and answering some more questions. So please, please, please feel free next Wednesday, 8 o'clock, same time, same place. Danny, my friend, thank you so much for, again, sharing the screen with me this evening.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks for having me along. My
It's
two
so
cents
nice.
worth.
It's so nice. It's so nice not to have to do this all by myself. I love it.
You'll
Thanks,
wax it
everybody.
anyway. Thanks, Phil, so much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you on Wednesday. Bye now.
Bye.